Tom, thank you so much for joining me. You are currently running for school board.
Correct.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Tom Bennett. I'm currently on the school board. I'm the vice chair, and I've been on the school board for 12 years. And I'm running for another election. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I got my teaching degree there, started teaching there, teaching special education. And in 2003, 2003, my wife and I moved out here and continued teaching special education. And I've been a huge proponent of public education. So that kind of led me to being in the school board. And, and I think the next question, you have another question later, so we'll wait until we get to that.
Absolutely.
That's a good introduction, I think.
Okay, so you mentioned a bit about your background, where you
Yes.
come from, being involved in special education. Tell me a bit about how that all started in the school board consideration for you.
Sure.
You mentioned you've been in the school board for 12 years. What led you to make that decision?
Sure. So, and my wife and I, we had a couple kids, and I was being the stay-at-home father because since both of us are from New Mexico, we didn't have any family here, so we didn't want daycares raising our kids. So I was the one staying home with them, and I'd always thought about running for office, and always thought it would be school board if I ever ran for office, just because that's kind of where my lane is in education. Mm-hmm. And as a teacher, it would sometimes get frustrating when I'd look at the things that they're making us do, and policy being set by people that don't know education. Mm-hmm. So I thought it'd be a good, it would be nice to have some educators on the school board. And being that I was a stay-at-home dad, I had the time to do it. And then so I started looking at our current school board at the time, and I see that there was only one that was an educator. There was only two that had kids in school. Mm-hmm. And there are people that have been there for over 30 years, over 25 years. And I thought that it was kind of odd, no educators. It's kind of like having the board of pediatrics without having any pediatricians on it. Mm-hmm. So I looked at that and felt, okay, this is a good opportunity. And I think it's something that I could bring, something that wasn't there. Mm-hmm. I could also bring the early childhood experience because I had young kids. My kids were 4 and 5 at the time. And looking at the makeup, there was only one that had young kids. So I really wanted to be an advocate for early childhood education and for early learners and for kids with special needs. So I ran and I was successful, and here we are 12 years later.
Okay, so tell me a bit about how that public service has impacted your life. So you mentioned that you've been on the board, again, for 12 years. What do you think that impact has had on you outside of, I want to say outside of the school board, but what I mean is like being an active member in it. How do you think that's impacted your life?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, I think public service, being a teacher, I think is public service, as a public employee. So I think that kind of led into that. But then, once becoming a school board member, there's a saying that the school board hat doesn't come off. So everywhere you go, you are a school board member. So, and you are representing the district, so you have to be mindful of what you're doing.
Sure.
And you could be at Cub or festival or whatever and run into somebody, and they're going to ask you questions. And so you're having those conversations, in the grocery store, which I enjoy. I enjoy these conversations. I enjoy being accessible to people that have questions. I want people to come talk to me and ask questions instead of just assuming something and getting false assumptions. Well, there's a school board member, I can go ask them. So okay. I really enjoy the personal contact with the community and just being everything that comes with it. Just the going to events, to civic events, going to the state of the city, going to different events all over the place, and just being involved. I think it's really great. I think we need more people to do that, to be civically engaged. And growing up in New Mexico, and growing up here, and coming here, it's a huge difference. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Minnesota leads the nation in voting every year, whereas New Mexico not so much. And sometimes Bloomington leads Minnesota in voting. So we have a very active community here that is involved, which I really love. Which is one of the things I love a lot about the city is that everyday average people can, run for office, get elected, meet people, meet their neighbors, and contribute.
Awesome. So you mentioned there the idea of being a representative of the school board. Mm-hmm. So beyond just kind of establishing the governance that the school board has over the district, you kind of see yourself as an active representative of how healthy the district is as well.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think that you are also represented by the district. I mean, there's lots of facets of being a school board member. Yeah, governance is the biggest part, but it's also to be the cheerleader for the district. Sometimes we have to go out and have voter-approved referendums, and so we have to go to the community and ask them to vote to raise their taxes.
Sure.
And so it's important to have that community connection and to be involved.
All right. So tell me a bit about how you perceive the school board's mission. Like, how do you envision what the school system, what part should they play in the community?
Well, our mission is to, empower and equip each learner to be successful in a rapidly changing world. And that is our mission statement. It comes from our strategic plan that we just did, I think, in 2023. And we had an outside consultant that led that process, and we had 90 members of our community, so, external and internal, so teachers and parents and students and community members. They all got together, I think it was like 4 or 5 different times, full days, and talking about what do we want from our education system. It shouldn't just be the 7 school board members deciding. We should hear from the community. What do you want from your school district?
Right.
And from that, we got our mission and our values, our core values and our vision, and our dream, believe, achieve is kind of our mantra, where we encourage, kids to dream big, and, we want them to believe that they can reach those dreams, and then we want to share in those successes together of achieving those dreams.
Excellent.
And, when it comes to the role that we play, I'm a big cradle to career kind of guy. My kids started early childhood learning when my daughter was a month old, was her first class, and she's now a senior. And I don't think it should just be starting kindergarten, go until you graduate, hand your diploma, and you're on your own. We need to prepare them for life after high school, whether that's going straight into the job force. We have a career and college academy here in Bloomington where kids can get class credit and go learn a skill. Like, one of the things that I enjoyed, we've started semiconductors, because we have 2 new semiconductor plants that are in Bloomington. We have SICK, and I forget the name of the other one, but that's as a result of the CHIPS Act that passed a couple years ago. So we have this need for people to do semiconductors, and kids can go and get their certification while in high school, get their diplomas, and go get a job making $25-$30 an hour. We also, have them have a plan. Are you going to go to college? Are you going to go to community college? Are you going to 4-year college? Are you going to a trade school? Are you joining the military? So back at least when I graduated high school in the 90s, it was pretty much, here's your diploma, now you're on your own.
Sure.
And you had limited options. We really want to prepare them to be productive citizens and contributing members of society.
Sure. So that kind of taps into my next question, which is essentially about student success. Beyond measuring test scores, you mentioned making or creating an environment where students become a contributing member of society. Tell me a bit about how you kind of quantify that and measure that success.
Well, I think it's important, especially in this day and time since COVID. We've really gone away from interacting with people. So I know some people say, well, you should just focus on reading, writing, arithmetic. And it's like, well, we never stopped doing reading, writing, arithmetic, but preparing a student for life is a lot more than just that. There's all the soft skills that we need to teach them. And I was substitute teaching here in Bloomington coming out of COVID, and many kids just forgot how to do school, forgot how to follow a routine. They've lost their rigor and their resiliency. And it took a while. I think last year I was still subbing in Bloomington, and it was like the first year out of middle school. It's like, okay, this is like what it was like before COVID, where behaviors are under control and people are actually learning. So I think it's all encompassing. It's trying to instill character values in them, and to learn from other perspectives. I mean, we have this. Our director of learning and teaching has a phrase that I love, where he says that when kids look into their curriculum, they should be seeing windows and mirrors. They should see windows into other people's cultures and also mirrors that reflect back at their culture.
Sure.
If they look at our curriculum and look around the building and they don't see anything or anyone that looks like them, then what are we teaching those kids? So it's important to include everybody, all aspects of learning and different people.
All right. So you kind of touch base on what you feel the role of the school should be, but tell me a little bit more about creating an environment where students become contributing members of society. So obviously you mentioned the semiconductor industry that's blooming in Bloomington. Tell me a bit kind of further in depth. So obviously we have pathways to higher education through like Normandale and other trade schools. Tell me about that process. How are you encouraging students to utilize what they have available?
Well, I think we do that through students in high school that have to put together a personal growth plan, and it's one of the requirements. And it's for self-discovery. Like, what do you want to do? It's not my decision what you want to do out of high school.
Right.
And then we provide the resources to help them achieve that. Like, we have guidance counselors, we have career and college counselors at the high schools. That we have a whole room for career and college where people can come and kind of explore different opportunities. And you can look at, well, I'm interested in this job. You can do research, find, well, how much is that job going to pay? Well, maybe I don't want that job. Well, how much will this job pay? And how much schooling will this need? So they can kind of, determine where they want to go so they can have a plan.
Okay. So let's talk a bit about some of the prioritization within the Bloomington School District. What do you think are some of the largest challenges that the district is facing?
Well, I think the largest one, which is, has been mostly the 12 years I've been there, is funding. I mean, I've been 12 years, and I think 7 or 8 of those years we've been in budget cuts. And, as an educator, that's the last thing I wanted to do coming on the school board. I'm a believer in the phrase that education cuts don't heal. And it is hard. It is hard to make cuts. And, we try to prioritize classrooms and trying to keep it away from student learning. But, after years and years of cuts, sometimes you have to raise class sizes. You have to start closing schools. So that is our biggest challenge. I think another one that has bubbled up the last couple of years is pretty much since COVID is that people have forgotten how to disagree without being disagreeable.
Sure.
There's a lot of people coming that are angry, and there's a lot of vitriol and just angry, and it's trying to get away from of rage baiting each other like people do online, and let's have conversations with each other. People come to our listening sessions and they're passionate about their issues, and I might be on polar opposite of where they are on those issues.
Sure.
But I still want to talk to them, and I want to say, let's go out and have coffee. Let's have a conversation. And after an hour and a half of talking and having coffee, they might not have moved in, I might not have moved in this, but
Right.
at least we're seeing people as human beings.
Right.
And it could be like, okay, well, he's not that bad just because he votes a different way or he believes a different way. Because really on the big issues, we agree. We all want safe schools. We all want our kids to learn. We all want them to achieve. We all want this school district to thrive. So let's stay away from the wedge issues, and let's get to what, our commonalities, which is the kids. We should be focusing on what's best for children, not, well, you voted for this person, so therefore you're a horrible person.
Yeah, we won't really discuss it, but I do want to emphasize that we do need to humanize our intellectual opponents, essentially.
Yes.
Like, we all need to be human to each other. I think that's something that we should emphasize. Okay, tell me a bit about how you have addressed those budget shortfalls to prevent staffing shortages.
Sure. Well, I was on the Finance and Facility Committee for a couple of years, and that's pretty much, we dive deep into that. And one thing we do is something called a guiding change document, which we give to administration, and it says, well, what we have to do is we have to make these cuts, and we have a column that these are untouchable. Like, these are things that we will not accept. And then, so trying to minimize them from the classroom and trying to say, okay, well, can we cut some administrative costs? Can we cut some of these things that would be great? We would love to have them, but
Sure.
when it comes to, well, we're going to have an extra administrator or we're going to raise class sizes. You have to make those trade-offs. So, that's something that I've really tried to emphasize, is try to keep those cuts away from the classrooms as much as I can.
Sure. So on the idea of how diverse Bloomington is becoming, obviously equity is a huge issue. Tell me a bit about your approach to making sure that all students, no matter what their background is, are given the same opportunity and support.
Yeah, that's something that I've really been working along on for the whole 12 years I've been here. Is the thing that our students were diversifying, but our staff wasn't. And if you have a school that's 60% diverse, but 98% of the staff are white, well, what message are you sending those kids? To me, you're sending the message that they're good enough to go there, but they're not good enough to work there. So we've really done a lot of trying to diversify our staff. We do something that's called a Grow Your Own program, which is a grant that we applied for and got, where our paraprofessionals can work towards their degree to become teachers while they're paraprofessionals. So, because the barrier to a lot of working families that are paras that want to be teachers is that you have to do student teaching. You have to do a whole semester of not getting paid. Well, if you're a single mother and you have your paycheck for as being a para, you can't afford to not teach or not work for 6 months. Right. So this opens up a whole new avenue to individuals where they can pursue a teaching degree, and they're already in the system, so we don't have to hire someone from somewhere else. So that's one thing. Another thing is through our strategic plan I talked about, that's our North Star. That's our moral compass of what we want from our district. And we get that from our community. And the community says we want equity, we want inclusivity, we want everyone to feel welcome. So those are part of our core values. And everything we do goes through our strategic plan. So when we set our superintendent goals, they're aligned with the strategic plan. And we have 5 goals in our strategic plan. When we set our school board goals, they're aligned with the strategic plan. So it's very much mindful on being more inclusive, and we also do a lot of professional development, and not just with teachers. Everyone in the district does, culturally responsive training so that they can learn about other cultures that might be different than theirs. Other people might be learning differently, try to understand each other. Because if you understand people, then it's better for everybody.
We'll definitely talk about engagement and transparency in a second here. Before we get there, I want to talk a bit about disagreements on the school board itself. So obviously, we are living in a bit of contentious times. How do you go about navigating those conflicts that might come up about policy or how to apply the governing body of the school board?
Sure. Yeah, that's really important in today's world, but it's also when I first got elected, it was people were saying that the board was kind of dysfunctional at the time because there were kind of people that didn't like and couldn't play nice with each other. And it was very tense if you go to a school board meeting. Just you can feel the tension between the school board members. So, and that's probably why when I ran, 3 of the incumbents that ran didn't get reelected who were running, because I think the community saw that and they wanted to change because they don't want that from their school board. And one thing that I tried to instill when I first got elected is that we need to get to know each other away from the board table. And there's something called open meeting law that says that a quorum of the board, so that's 4 board members or more, can't get together outside of a meeting to discuss school board issues. It's like, well, you can get together socially. So we started going to Applebee's after our school board meetings, and it was open invite. Everyone on the school board, everyone in the cabinet could go just to learn about each other.
Sure.
And see them. So we're not just talking issues. So we don't see the person on their issues. We see them for a human, maybe sharing pictures of their kids or their grandkids and just getting to know each other. That diffuses so much tension when you actually know someone. Because they're not your adversary, they're your colleague who might have a different opinion. And then so that's the proactive approach. And also proactively, we saw this going in different school districts around the state and around the country, that there are school board members getting elected with the sole intention to create chaos and to destroy the system from within. So we took the proactive approach to create policies to prevent that from, or what do we do if that happens?
Sure.
So we have school board ethics policies, which is a list of what the job entails as a school board member, where you put district interest before self-interest, those type of things, all these different tenets, and then what happens if you don't? Like the first time might just be a talk with the chair or the superintendent. Second time it might be a conversation at a board table, with cameras running.
Sure.
The third, it might be, you might be removed from your committees. After that, you might be censured. And if it still continues, then the board could vote to remove that school board member. Because we wanted to make sure that was in place in case that happened. Because you don't want to scramble and have nothing in policy when that happens. Because our policies are how we govern the district. If it's not in policy, then it's like, okay, well, that's gray area. We don't really have any legal authority to do this. So we need to have policies. So those are kind of the 2 ways, I think.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So we'll go back to engagement a little bit here. Tell me a bit about how you've embraced communicating with the parent body, communicating student needs to parents and accepting and listening what they think should happen.
That's one of my favorite things to do is talking to parents. I have 2 kids in the district, and so they're involved in different programs. So I talk to a lot of parents, and I know a lot of parents. And Your parents call me or talk to me or send me emails and ask me questions, and I'll go have conversations with anybody. I'll talk on the phone, meet with coffee, or go to a group of people and talk to them. So I think that's an important part of being a school board member. Some people think that, well, school board, you just have 2 meetings a month. It's like, no, it's a lot more than that, So I think the community constituent service or community service, I think is highly important. And I think that starts with being visible. You show up to football games where there's parents. You show up to open houses. You show up to any type of school events or even community events. I'll be at farmers market and be talking school board.
Okay, so I assume since that's kind of one of your pillars that you lean on, that is also kind of one of the outlets of transparency that you have as well. You use those kind of opportunities to be transparent about what's happening on the school board and any sort of policy, things that are being floated around, etc.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's kind of difficult sometimes because if it's something that is under board consideration but we haven't taken action on it, then it would be inappropriate for us to be having one-off conversations about it.
Sure. Because
we are supposed to, at least until we make the decision, and then after the decision is made, then we are supposed to support the decision of the board. So even if you vote against something, you're supposed to support the decision of the board. So you might not like something in the past, you shouldn't be going around saying, yeah, these guys are idiots that voted for this. I voted against it. You're supposed to be saying, well, that's the way the board voted, and I support the district, and that type of thing. So it kind of gets a little difficult with in the nuance of it, but on big picture, I love doing that. And there's times that, people don't agree, and those are the ones I want to talk to. If you disagree, let's talk. Sure. And let's see if we can find agreement, and if we can't, then, at least you have the opportunity to be heard. Instead of, well, nobody cares, nobody listens, because there are school board members that do want to hear from you. They do want to talk to you. You might not change their mind, but at least they can explain to you where they're coming from, what they're thinking, and hopefully that'll make some sense and resonate with people.
So after another 12 years that you've been on the board, tell me what you want to be have been your legacy on serving on the Bloomington School Board.
My legacy, huh? Well, if I'm successful enough and get elected again, it'll be 16 years, and I think that, you never want to say never, but I think that's probably going to be the end. I think it would be amazing on a personal level to be able to start on the school board when my kids are entering the school system and being able to hand them their diploma at the end of it would be, a dream come true, I guess, to be able to be on the school board their entire time that they're in school.
Sure.
They might not agree with that because I'm always there. Right. And they always ask me, well, why did you do this? Well, can't you change this? You want me to change everything? But I think that would be cool. And, really, I think that as school board members, we are stewards of this district. And this district has been around since 1917. So that's 108 years. And so I want this district to be in a better spot than when I got here. And I think that we have done that. I think that some of the key things that I'm most proud of that we've done since I've been there is we've added student school board representatives. That was something that I wanted more student voice at the table. I mean, they can't vote because you have to be elected to vote, but I want to hear their opinions.
Sure.
We are making policies for you. Give us your opinion. What's the students' opinions? I think we've done, policies that protect students, especially our most vulnerable students. One of the biggest things that took me forever to get done, something I wanted for 7 years, was gender inclusion policies, so that people can be protected for their true, authentic selves, and that those rights would be protected. So things like that I think is important, and also, I would like to see us move back to where we are growing enrollment, at least stabilizing enrollment, so that we're not having to be in budget cuts. So that's really where I'd like us to see us go. Right now our own mission is, we call it Operation Enrollment. It's all hands-on, trying to keep enrollment. That's why we opened up a new early childhood center this year, because we know if we get those kids in preschool, well, the preschool curriculum aligns with the K-12 curriculum, they're going to stay. So if we can get them in a nice, early learning center, then hopefully they will also stay in kindergarten, so we can keep those students here.
Sure. So that sounds like you're moving the school board to have a very proactive stance in communicating with the students, as well as kind of figuring out what their needs are. Is there anything that you think that could help that effort and make the school board more responsive, being proactive to the student body?
Yeah, I think students showing up. I love it. A couple times, I think last year we had like the Green Club from Kennedy come and come and just talk to the school board about what they wanted their school, to be more, green and more, responsive to the environment. We had a couple years ago a Girl Scout troop come to talk about the waste that we're doing in our cafeterias and with the styrofoam, trays and wanting to get to more compostable stuff. So
Sure.
when students get involved, we want to hear from students, and so we really want to create opportunities to empower students. And I think we've done that. We also, the superintendent has a superintendent student advisory committee, and I'm also on the legislative committee. And last year we took students, our student reps, to the Capitol for the first time because we were thinking, okay, well, these politicians aren't listening to us, so maybe they'll listen to the kids. So let's take the kids, and the kids loved it. They loved being in that opportunity to be able to participate and to advocate for their fellow students. So I really think the more opportunities you can create for students to get involved, there's going to be students that want to do it, and it makes a better school district to hear from the students.
Sure, that's great. So what is your final message to Bloomington residents? What do you want them to know about you?
Well, that I'm all about public education. I'm one of those people that believe that public education is one of the finest institutions that this country's ever created. It's a system where anybody, no matter their background, their ability, can be afforded free and appropriate public education where they can climb the ladder of success. And public education, as you might know, is kind of in the crosshairs lately. I think the anti-public school folks out there have never been more organized, have never been more well-funded, have never had more political power than they do now. So now more than ever, school board elections are important. I think 75 to 80% of Bloomington do not have kids in school. So I'll be out door knocking and I'll be talking to people like, well, I don't have any kids in school, so I don't really know I don't really care about the school board. And it's like, yeah, but your tax dollars are paying for this education.
Right.
The better the schools are, the better your property values are. So you should have a say on who's spending your tax dollars and creating this great school system. And there's 4 seats up for election, and there's 7 school board members. So just one election is all it takes to turn the tide of a school district. And this progress we've been making towards inclusivity and towards equity could be turned around with one vote. So I really encourage people to get out there and vote for school board. Don't just skip the ballot. Learn about the candidates. You can find out about me by going to my website at tomfortheboard.com and find out more things. Send me questions, send me emails, and get out and vote.
All right. Well, Tom, thank you so much for joining me here and answering some questions.
Awesome.
Is there anything I missed that you want to throw in at the end? Or
No. Well, I was going to say I love this set. I'm waiting for Zach Galifianakis to pop out and start asking me some questions.
Of course. Well, we're doing it this way.
Yeah, and I appreciate the nice flag. This is great. So thanks for bringing me or letting me come to this opportunity, and hopefully you can keep doing this every year because I think this is a great format. Better than just reading the script. I like having the conversation. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Sure.